You're welcome to another episode of Bubbling 247. I still remain your host, Tomilola Boinde. So, you know what we do on this platform already, but for our new joiners and new listeners and new viewers, this is a platform, this is a podcast where we talk about creativity in action. We talk about new technologies and how people or professionals are leveraging different technological tools, to better their work across different sectors. We also talk about innovation and new world inventions. Today, we'll be talking about creativity. I have a guest who will be diving deep into conversation about how generative AI is impacting how we tell stories, most especially creative processes. So I have with me a poet, a writer, a spoken word artist. This is someone, a painter, someone who embodies creativity. I've known him for almost 15 years now. We studied creative arts together in our school, and I am looking forward to an engaging conversation. I don't have any doubt about that. I know that anytime I have a conversation with my brother, it's always deep and always insightful. So just stay tuned, and I know that you will have an insightful moment, an engaging moment with me. So my brother Victor, it's good to have you on this platform. It's good to thank you for joining me to have this conversation. I cannot appreciate you enough. So, but before we dive deep into the conversation, for the sake of our listeners, and I know you're ready, but for the sake of our listeners and viewers, they would love to know a bit about yourself, a bit about you, how your journey started, most especially in creativity, and of course gave you that platform to have this conversation. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Tomilola. My name is Victor Adetimilehin. I am the manager of communications at the Solina Center for International Development and Research in Nigeria. I'm also a spoken word poet, and I am a painter by training from the university. I'm happy to be here and look forward to very, very exciting conversation.
That's yeah. Is a like I said in my introduction, like you embody creativity when it comes to all areas of what you do, from poetry to writing to painting. I appreciate the work that you do when it comes to artistry. In terms of your artistry, I appreciate that. So, what are you excited about when it comes to the recent development when it comes to in terms of technology, how people are leveraging technology to tell stories now in different areas of creativity, and how they are leveraging that in terms of their creative processes?
I think it's an interesting day and age that we live in, and it's beautiful to see people, take up basic tools to tell stories. For me, I think the interesting to see is to see people able to think of an idea and execute it in little time as possible at little to no cost. That's definitely one benefit of technology. I know that people are, kind of afraid, like, now, what does this mean for the artist? What does this mean for the creative? I think my go-to would always be what the invention of the camera meant for the painters of the time. Right? At a certain point in history, it was about accuracy, naturalism, realism, paint it as it is. And now that the camera has come, that becomes your competition. And then painters pivoted, right? They're no longer painting things as they are, as you see it. It's a layer of creativity. Now we're bringing more things into how we paint these pictures. We have, hyper realism now. We have expressionism, impressionism,
Yeah.
and it's about thinking about what's another way. What can I do that the camera cannot do? And as we are coming to see with technology, especially with ChatGPT and all of the generative AI, you realize that it still follows the law of GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If your idea is not authentic, if you don't have the creative process, you would not make the best of the technology. In the same way that if I give you the most expensive camera and you do not have a creative direction, you probably would not be able to make a great film.
You know one thing that is actually interesting is just before we started this recording, I went to LinkedIn, and the first thing that popped on my feed was this article written by Samson Oladipupo. Is a startup founder. I don't know, maybe he's of Alafia. I don't know, maybe he's in Ibadan. I don't know, but he's a Nigerian startup founder, right? and he wrote that one of the points that was poignant, that was so striking, was he wrote that conception is of man's and execution is of AI's. Like it is the work that the creativity cannot be left in the hand of generative AI, and that it is we humans that we can still dream, we can think, feel, and create, and then use AI as a in our process, to ensure that we leverage it to execute, and it's more like it's in sync with your own from the perspective that you've come from, most especially looking at the painters of the year, the Da Vinci's of this world. They had their own tools in their own right at that time, at least their own technology at that time, and they were able to leverage all of that to tell more stories, paint more stories. But in this day now, as a painter, there is a question that I always ask: when you prompting to canvas, right? When you prompt a work and it creates a beautiful art piece, whose soul does that art piece carry?
I was gonna come to that question, and I was gonna I would take a different approach to a different example than the one that you shared. So I tried to train generative AI based on my previous works. So I bundle up my poem and say, "This is how I write. Learn how I write."
Just like I
Right.
did too.
Then I send a prompt. Can you write something on this based on the way I write? And although it would appear as if the AI is sounding like me, but more often than not, there is no depth.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
nuances
yeah,
are lost,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
You're
and
right.
that's what you mean by the soul. It's
Yeah,
the collection of the lived experiences that we have.
yeah,
Is what makes me to look at the situation and you look at the same situation, and we come away with sometimes very different things, sometimes very similar things, but nuanced in a very different way,
yeah,
right? So if if so much of the creators creative process goes into the prompt, then maybe the output can capture some of its soul, some of the
yeah.
person writing the prompt soul. But if it is just a generic random generate a picture of a dog, then I think there is no soul in that,
There is
because
also in that.
you do not have control over the emotions that
Yeah,
that picture is supposed to evoke. And again, I know that many times you've seen this happen when you want a particular image and you have to write the prompt over
over and
and
over
over and
again. You have to
over again,
reiterate. Yes, you have to
yeah, to
reiterate.
to get exactly what you want, which means beyond just describing, beyond just process thinking, there is something about creativity that is innate to the human soul.
Yeah. So like myself, what I did was, I picked out all of those articles I wrote in school during those days, because I still believe that those times were time when I wrote with my soul. Like I wrote my soul out, because I sometimes when I look at those articles and I think, what was I thinking when I wrote this particular article? And because they came from depth. So I trained ChatGPT how to I told it that, what, these are some of my past work. This is my own writing style. Try to take it in, analyze it, let me know what it is, what is my style, what do you think about this style, and then save it in your memory, such that whatever article I want to write, let it be out of my own writing style. And of course, as a brand communicator too, as a brand guy, different brands now leverage that. They give it to they give ChatGPT to save it in their memory, and to talk about their tone of voice. But oftentimes, in terms of for me, oftentimes I find myself rewriting some of the outputs, ensuring that I still put this human feel, I still have a bit of myself in whatever output I get. And this takes me to question about defining creativity, defining what does creativity mean in terms of the output of generative AI. Now, how do you embed your own creativity to ensure that this output that is being generated out of these ChatGPT or whatever platform that you use, they still has that the flow of your own inbuilt creativity in it.
Thank you very much. So, for me, just like you mentioned, but rather than me rewriting, I do the writing up front.
Oh, okay.
So, what I do is, if I'm going to write an article, I'm going to write the entire article out, or I'm going to write an outline. Right, and I'm going
Oh,
to
yeah,
say,
yeah. I
and one
think
of the
that's
things I do is stick to my original wordings and
what.
phrasing as much as possible.
Oh, okay.
And the way I use ChatGPT at the end of the day is not just to chunk out articles and chunk out images. About this is what I have written now, based on your knowledge, all of the things you have in your black box.
Yeah.
What are the leaps in logic? What are the counter arguments for the narrative I
Yeah.
am bringing? How do I strengthen this argument? What are the loopholes I should be looking out
Yeah.
for?
Yeah.
So in that way, it reminds me of the days, back then in 2010s, where you were in some of those conversations where we would bounce ideas off each other.
Of it,
When
yes,
you
yes.
say, "Oh, we are Pan-Africanists," have you heard about Thomas Sankara? Have you heard
Yeah.
about Lumumba? These are
I
the
remember those. I
ideologies.
remember those days.
So that's what I do with ChatGPT. Bounce off ideas, refine my
I
idea
guess.
until I'm satisfied with what it is. I I, I don't write the prompt and say write an article about ABCD. No, I put out my thoughts,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, the article must be me, must be my thought process.
Yeah.
Another thing I do would be, if I'm not going to write the articles for things like, maybe I want to work on a comedic series, I would write a prompt that follows a thought structure,
Oh, okay.
right? So I can say, oh, I want to imagine how, say, King Solomon would be as a modern day figure.
Oh, we actually come to that your series that you've been doing on. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Yeah, yeah. You come to that.
So what I did with that series was to build step by step thinking. It's the
Yeah.
same way I would try to teach a human. If someone comes, okay, how do you do this? So it's the step by step thinking, how I think about it, is what I would write into the prompt to guide how the AI would
We'll
interact
interact.
with the inputs. But fundamentally, the input is mine. The creative idea, the spark is mine.
It's your, I also do that. So before, in those days when I write articles, when I was writing different when I was a columnist at that time, when I was writing articles back to back in school that time, it took me, so there are sometimes one article might take me a week, one article might take me 2 nights. So it depends on, sometimes one article might be the idea that might come for that article might be one sentence, and when I get that inspiration for that one sentence, I write it down. So then I often then I think about how can I flesh this article further. What are the bits and pieces I can piece together to ensure that this article it becomes a whole body of work. So, but with AI now, it's kind of easy for me. What I make sure that I do is I don't subject my creativity to in the hands. I don't put it in the hands of the tools. I ensure that what I have the inside of how I want the output should be. Then I, like you do, I structure my thoughts. And but these days I don't even bother about maybe my grammar is correct or not. However it comes to me, I just write it. I know that the tools would of course make that grammatical correction. And another thing I do is, these days I find myself talking more to, say, Meta AI, to these tools. I find myself, because I think I'm now lazy. I'm not lazy to type, because I am not lazy to type. So anytime, whatever comes to my mind, I just pick my tool. I just pick my phone. Then I talk to AI. I talk to Meta AI mostly, because sometimes when I use the audio of ChatGPT, sometimes it doesn't pick the audio. It will tell me to re-record again. But when it comes to Meta AI, it picks it and it gives me whatever output I want it to be. But so it brings me to the question about creative laziness. So, but before we go to the laziness part of it, let's talk about how these tools are helping in terms of are helping to lock out creative block. You know, for we creatives, there are times that we want to just express ourselves, but we have this block that we find it hard to. We all have it. So, and I believe that these tools, how are you using it to ensure that at every point in time you have a creative work to do, and you have that creative block locked out of your own cupboard.
Thanks. So, is the way you're talking about it, that's what I also do. I don't make generative AI do the work. Generative AI is my assistant.
Yeah.
More often than not, it's my co-creator.
That's
right.
It.
So
that's it. Right.
If I don't have a full article written out or a full poem, I can say, "Oh, I'm thinking about writing ABC. This is the angle I'm thinking about. Can you evaluate the merit of this idea? Is this idea worth writing about?"
Yeah.
And then ChatGPT or whatever generative I would say, "This is a solid idea. You can look at it this way. You can look," and I can say, "Are there other ways that we can look at it?"
Look at it.
And then sometimes it might just give you a first suggestion, like, "What if you look at it from the point of view of a child?" And that suggestion, again, much like bouncing off idea with your creative equals, would give you a light bulb will go up in your head. So I love the idea of the POV, but maybe not from the POV of a child. Maybe from the POV of an angel or of a younger person, right? So it's from the suggestions. The suggestion is basically kickstarting your thinking. From the suggestions, you can decide what you want to go with. And my own preference is I guide the AI to do.
Yeah.
You are not the expert. I am the expert. I am the owner of this work. I would not take all of your suggestions. Sometimes I will come back and say, that last point you say, I don't agree with it. Even sometimes when you're trying to co-create a list, you have to tell the AI, like, doesn't number 5 and number 7, are they not the same thing?
Yeah.
You don't have an opportunity to collapse point A and C together into one block.
Yeah.
So that's the way it helps me personally get over the creative block. And sometimes it might just be research, which is something you had mentioned. Sometimes the reason why the article takes 1 week is because you need to go back and figure out something that happened in the life of one guy at some year.
Yes.
But with ChatGPT, most of these historical, facts are there. And you can double check.
You can do deep research.
I don't need to spend the next 8 hours on Google trying to dig for a piece of information. I can just type into ChatGPT, pull it out. If I remember it correctly, this is it. If it doesn't sound correct, then I can go and double check with other sources. So collapsing the research time is really, really great. And also, it's about having an editor, right? Having an editor. And it's beyond just checking for grammar. I can say, okay, evaluate this poem based on the following criteria. Design a weighing metric. If I'm going to measure this on 100%, let metaphor carry, say, 60%. Let imagery carry 30%. Let rhymes carry 10%. Based on this guideline of this framework I've given you, can you evaluate these poems and let me know how good it is? And one thing I did yesterday was there was a poem I listened to on YouTube. I want to hear a poem by Steve Coleman. Then I went and looked for the lyrics, and I dumped it in ChatGPT and I said, "Why is this poem so relatable?" So it's like reverse engineering. And it's like, okay, these are the reasons why it's relatable. So if I want to create a work like this, these are what will
guide you. Yeah. Actually, yes. It's I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently, most especially in time when it comes to this subject area. Because there are every time now there are different tools. It was a few days ago Google released Veo 3, right? And I've been seeing how people are creating, even though I have spent a lot on subscriptions on different platforms like this platform that we're using. So I don't have another $200 and something to put into to subscribe such that I can test it out for now, because for now it can generate like maybe like 5 seconds or of clip for now, so I don't have such amount. But the way these tools help creators to create at the speed of light is something that is so amazing, right? Something that I because I've been exploring different tools. I remember there was a time I explored Agent. So Agent, I can create my avatar, and then I can make recordings, via audio recordings. Then I can play it over so that it will be speaking. That my avatar will be speaking, and you would not know that, because I would have recorded my video to create it, and you would not know that uh, I am the one. Like you will not know that I am not the physical one. It's just an avatar that is doing that work. So for me, it kind of helps me in terms of that creative. It helps my own creative process. Like, because now I can, if I think on my feet, I can prompt, and I can tell you, no, I need these. These are the areas. These are the things I need. Like you said, I also give it the building blocks. Then these days I also take some video. Maybe I want to create a video. I want to have something like a video like this for brands. Then I pick out that from YouTube. I tell the prompt, I give the prompt, what, analyze this video. What are the creative, what are the visual meta cues, visual metaphors that were embedded into these arts that how can I leverage? Is it the colors? Is it the symbolisms? Or however, that these are ways I use these tools. So now, in terms of now coming to the lazy part, there are some people who believe that artists are becoming creatives. Let me put that creatives are becoming lazy because they are becoming too dependent on some of these tools to do the bulk of the work for them. So, do you also share that belief that creatives are becoming lazy, that these tools are making creatives to be lazy at their work?
I don't quite agree with that. I think any creative that now, relies on AI to churn out just things for them to put their name on is probably not a creative to start in the first place. Maybe they're just an hustler. They're just a hustler rather than looking for the next thing. Because there's no way. There's even your own work, the poem you wrote, you would edit. The
Yeah,
painting you made, you would repaint it. The words, you would go over it again and again, you would rehash it.
yeah.
However, I guess that the things with tools being available is that people who would not have in 1,000 years tried their hands at these art forms now have the privilege to do so.
Oh
The
yes,
challenge
yes.
for creatives now is how to stand out.
That's, in
How
fact, that was my next question. How do we, as creatives, you can just bundle up together and just share the thoughts. As creatives, how do we stand out in this market? How do we know that this is a creative, or this is someone that is so dependent on has been trained using AI and so dependent on this? So how do we know a creative aside from other people who are prompt engineers? Let's put that who just know this. They know the tool in and out, and they can use it to get the best out of the work.
So I think we will get to a place where we will need to redefine creativity. We would need to redefine what it means to be creative.
Creative.
And an example would be, I mean, before the camera, if you can represent something accurately, you're an artist.
Yeah.
Now that the camera is competing with you, you need to find a different way to still bring all of the skills that you have, all of the peculiar way you see the world. You still need to bring that to the bear to create pictures in a way that the camera will not,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we've seen, and a fantastic example would be hyperrealism. We see people like Olumide or Reshegun
Or
in
a Shegun,
Nigeria
yes, yes, yes.
who draw and paint hyper realistic 3D images,
Yeah.
right? So for things like writing, people already on a Latin level, people are already talking about AI
Everybody's
stock
a writer now.
faces. People can already identify AI stock face that are
Yes.
very shallow, right?
Yes.
It now means that as a creative, it is no longer enough to remain at that level. You must
Level.
go deeper. An example I can give would be poetry. In how poetry has evolved in Nigeria. In the earlier days, just write or even rap in Nigeria, right?
Yeah.
Just rhyme one or two things, slap it together, people would listen to you. But now that almost everybody can do that, if you're going to distinguish yourself, you have to go deeper. So some people now begin to, go deep into exploring metaphors and
Yeah.
imageries as opposed
Imageries.
to rhyming, because anybody can do that. Some people are now saying, "Oh, the kind of poems I'm gonna write. They are poems that you might not get. Well, you might not get it if you read it once. You must read it over and over again. That's the amount of intentionality I will put into the poem." Some people would say, "My poems now need to evoke very strong emotions from my
Emotions.
audience." So we now begin to find a different way, because while it might be very simplistic, at the base of it, AI, generative AI is about pattern recognition and pattern repetition.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you get to a place where this is the pattern that AI uses. I cannot afford to use only this pattern. Let me break out of this pattern. And that's what it means to think outside the
The
box.
box.
A time may come where AI will catch up with where you are, but then again, you will need to reinvent yourself. Maybe something that people can relate more to would be football. Before VAR, people could get away with so many
With so
things.
many things. Yeah. Yeah.
So many things.
Yeah.
Now that there is VAI, it has redefined what it means to be a football player, what it means to be a defender. You can no longer,
There are some
kick
tackles
the
you can no
leg.
longer just make here.
Exactly. And you still have to be efficient.
Yeah.
And despite AI, VAR rather, there are still efficient defenders. There are still efficient strikers. Because
Strikers.
as human beings, the task before us is not insurmountable. We always find a way to climb the mountains, find a way to beat the odds. And that will be the test for creatives in the next few years: how to beat the odds, how to stand out. I want to be able to read something like, this has a kind of deep thought, a human nuance to it.
Nuance. Yeah.
That's what we'll see in the next couple of years.
So in terms of that, how do you, how would you tell creative, or what would you advise creative to? How would you tell them? What would you, in one way, would you say that they should approach the human AI collaboration for creative work processes?
Right. So I think we've touched on some of these things earlier, right?
Yeah.
One of it is co-create. Co-create. AI is your assistant, it's helping you to achieve a goal. You are still the one very much in charge
In
of the
charge.
creative process. So before you even go to where, have a very clear mental map, have a clear direction where you want the work to go, what you want to say, right? So that when you get into the AI, you can tell it you are running off, you are going beyond the scope. Come back. I know you. And the amazing thing is that AI also adapts to the way we use it. Right. So
Yeah.
even if I put a text in AI in my chat GPT now, for example, without saying anything, it can probably figure out what I would prompt it to do.
To do. Yeah.
So number one is understand that AI does not replace you. AI cannot replace you. Treat it as a collaborator and not a competitor or an obstacle. Work with it. Number two is understanding that in some ways what AI will, if you don't have a good idea of by yourself, you just have a rough sketch, what ChatGPT or any generative AI would give you is the basic, and you need to turn that basic into
Into
spectacular. You need
spectacular.
to turn that good into great, right? So no matter how great that output looks, look at it again from your very human experiences and find ways to make it better, make it more beautiful, make it more you.
More unique.
Like,
Yeah.
those are like the two things that are really, really going to be very important in where we approach it. And number three is, you know, which is not a problem limited to AI anyway. It's about, artists and trends, creative and trends. If you don't understand why you create, it will be easy for you to fall into any trend and lose your voice and do what everyone else is doing.
He's doing.
But if
Yeah.
you know the reason why you create, then those principles will guide what you can or cannot do, what you can accept or cannot accept, and will also guide your very thought process. And in this, some people would grapple with the ethical reality.
Oh
How
yeah. We'll
much
go
of
into
the
that.
words in a poem would have to be mine for me to be able to call the poem mine?
Yes, we're going to that. Actually, we
So,
are going to
and
let's just go into that. For one of some of these biggest concern have been about maybe around AI generated music or AI generated, most especially writing, because when you see the outputs are more templated.
Yep.
So yeah, the output are more templated. So how do I say that this is mine, and how do you say this is yours? So what are the ethical concerns, and how do you think that we can best approach this such that we don't fall into that pit
So again, it goes back to the idea of using AI as a
as
collaborator,
co-collaborator?
and this is what it means. So if I want to make a case for, why, family planning should be adopted at a certain age, what are my own thoughts? How am I going to phrase it? If I'm going to talk about, I mean, if it is not something I have expertise in, why am I even talking about it in
Talking
the first
about it,
instance?
yeah,
So I should have significant expertise and technical know-how about the subject I'm talking about. That if I'm asked to give a speech right now, how will I give the speech? And that should form the basis of what I am saying.
right.
So if when I'm using ChatGPT, it's either it's correcting grammatical errors, I'm checking it for, okay, can you help me optimize this for readability, for understand,
Yeah,
or like test this? And rather than just, so I wouldn't say edit this for readability, like I would say analyze it for readability.
adaptability.
And what that does is it makes it give suggestions.
You now
So you can say,
implement.
your this paragraph is filled with many technical jargon. I will suggest that you replace it with something that more people are read. And that makes you become a better creative. So it's not just about I
Yeah,
give you this, you give me out.
yeah,
It's a process. He can give me 5 recommendations. I will say, okay, I agree with suggestion 1 and 2. I don't agree with 3. And sometimes I argue with the AI and
with
say,
the
I don't agree
AI.
with this point you're
You need
making.
to
This is
see
how
you
I
need
see
to see my pages. You actually need to see my pages because I actually agree with you because for me I believe that in however you want to use the tool, make sure that you know the building blocks. Make sure that
absolutely.
you know even if the basic. For example, you want AI to paint for you. Can you talk about the painting that has been generated? Can you actually talk about it? Can you talk about maybe the colors, what it means, what it feels, the
Style.
stories embedded in it, the style of the artworks that has been generated, that have been, that have been created by this? Can you talk about it? So if you cannot talk about these things, I believe that I think in the long run that would be what would separate the artists, the creatives from prompt engineers. I believe it is the knowledge, the in-depth knowledge, and because let's say for example art, in terms of the way we appreciate art are different, right? And how it speaks to us are actually also different. But when you see a layman appreciate art, or it's so different from where when you say an artist appreciate art, you would see the in-depth appreciation when an artist speaks about an art. So I think that is what would separate us going forward in this. And I'm so much I am so much excited about what's to come. I am so much excited about how generative AI would enhance our creativity and in terms of work output, in terms of most especially in terms of operational efficiency, in also the way we create our work. And I just like you also you've said, and I also advise that we use it as corporate, or we use it as assistants rather than submitting our creativity and our thought in fully in the hands of the generative AI. I thank you for it's been an engaging conversation so far. I like I said it's 30, it will be we just give it a 30 minutes. We leave it at 30 minutes. And but before I let you go, what are you excited about the future when it comes to leveraging technology, leveraging generative AI to tell stories, and of course to also co-create? What are you excited about, and what should in terms of the human AI collaboration? What do you think that at which level do you think we would be, say, in the next 5 years?
Man, about what will be in the next 5 years, I don't think anybody can predict that, because when ChatGPT came out a few years back, we had no idea what we're talking about AI agents right now.
Yeah.
My final thought would be, if you're a creative or you lead a team of creative, think of AI as just another member on your team. It's just like another entity on your team, right? And in the same way, you would expect, members of your team to pitch in. And then at the end of the day, you still hold the creative direction and say, this is the vision, this is where we will go, right? That's how you should think about it. And like you said, we're not submitting our creativity or our thought
Yeah.
process to generative AI. And of course, we need to keep learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Building blocks you mentioned, they are very essential. If I'm going to paint, I'm going to talk about the proportions, the styles,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
a style means, the color psychology.
Yeah.
All of those things are things we would need to build into prompts, and that's
Yeah.
what would make the work ours and
Yeah.
not
And
other
not
persons.
all
It's
other
been
persons.
it's been a
It's been
pleasure
an
to
amazing
be here.
conversation with you. Thank you so much for, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for coming to have this conversation with me. I enjoyed every bit of it, and it's
Likewise.
even though we've been planning this for a while, but you have a busy schedule, and I also have mine. But I thank God that we are able to have this conversation, and it's quite insightful. Thank you so much for it. So yeah,
Thank you.
that's it for today on today's episode of Bubbling 247. And I hope to, we hope to bring you another conversation sometime soon. Thank you.